Hey everybody, I'm Mike and welcome to episode 5 of the Aviation podcast. October was a crazy busy month for me, and so I just wanted to take this time to kind of recap some of the really cool things that happened during the month of October. So to kick off the month, we took a really cool trip to Germany and we went to Frankfurt, Stuttgart, and Munich. We flew on some really cool airplanes and did a lot of really great spotting. So right now I am currently editing that trip vlog for that trip. I'm a little behind in those, so there will be one posting before that, but this one has a lot of really cool aviation stuff in it. The trip was really awesome. So far I've already posted the spotting comp for Frankfurt, and the Stuttgart one is coming later this week. So make sure you guys check those out. Lots of really awesome spotting and locations in Germany. So in addition to all the aviation stuff we're going to continue to talk about in this episode of the AvPod, I do woodworking on the side, and October was also really busy for that too. I saw some Etsy sales and also took on a commissioned piece. So if you guys want to see my other YouTube, which is strictly wood turning and woodworking, go ahead and check that out. I am trying to grow this channel to where it becomes a partner. So any algorithm stuff or likes, comments, subscriptions, watch hours, any of that stuff is greatly appreciated as I try and grow the channel. One of the bigger things that we saw out of Willow Run this month was on October 19th, the Yankee Lady, the B-17 bomber, took its final flight. And for those of you that weren't aware, the Yankee Lady was sold off, and I did a pretty in-depth video covering this in June. All the videos I mentioned are going to be linked down in the description, so you can go ahead and check that out. But yeah, like I said, the Yankee Lady was actually sold off to a private collector, and that was rumored to be Charles Somers. He has quite the extensive collection of other warbirds already. So, like I said, on the 19th, the Yankee Lady took its final flight out to the West Coast where it was going to be disassembled and then shipped over to New Zealand for a complete ground up restoration. And basically, they're going to completely disassemble this aircraft and go over it, looking at every little thing and rebuilding anything that needs to be done. So when it comes back, it's going to be basically a new airplane. And this is where he has had his other aircraft done, and apparently they do some really good work over there. So that is kind of a good thing. I know a lot of people are very upset with this topic and how Yankee, which is now the Michigan Flight Museum, handled this. Lots of comments on both videos about people being upset over this topic. So you can go ahead and check out the video of its last flight, which was accompanied by a flyby, which was pretty cool, and the original video about the sale of the Yankee Lady. So the next really big event takes us up to Oscoda, and that was that the first ever 777-300 freighter was delivered to the US for its final FAA certification. So November 778 Charlie Kilo is the first 300 ERSF after its conversion over in Israel, and that will be going to Coletta Air. So it got delivered to the US via Bangor, Maine, and then up to Oscoda after clearing customs. And we're pretty sure the reason it didn't go to Coletta's headquarters in Willow Run is, for those of you that remember, in April we saw a 747-400 come through to clear customs and then go to Oscoda where it was scrapped. And there was some issues with taxiways and wing clearance, and the airplane ended up sitting on the runway for about 45 minutes while they kind of figured out a taxi path and got a tug and whatnot. So I'm pretty sure that was kind of the driving factor why it went to Bangor to clear customs instead of Willow before it went up to Oscoda. So this was a video I've been waiting for the last probably 2 or 3 years to make, because this was the first delivery of the 300 ERSF. And I was pretty let down by this because I had all kinds of alerts set up and everything to know when it was going to happen. And I knew it was coming to Bangor and spending the night, but I wasn't sure at what point the next day the aircraft would make its way to Oscoda. So I had some FlightAware alerts set up, and unfortunately, they did not work for whatever reason. I ended up setting an alarm for about 7 in the morning so I could make the drive up there, and like I kept waking up in the middle of the night looking at my phone and not seeing any alerts. And when I finally got up at 7, I decided to just look on FlightAware, and I saw that it had filed for an 8 o'clock departure out of Maine. So it's a 3-hour drive from where I live to Oscoda. And if it took off at 8, it was about an hour and a half flight, and it would have given me just enough time to be getting there at the same time the aircraft was arriving. So started making my way up to Oscoda, and about halfway there, I looked at my phone, and the plane had taken off early, and it was flying pretty fast, and there was no way I was going to make that time up. So it landed about an hour early, and I unfortunately did not get the landing video, which was a huge bummer to me because like I took the day off from work just for this. I had been waiting for probably 2 or 3 years to see this one thing, and yeah, I was pretty let down, pretty upset with whatever was going on with the FlightAware alerts. About 2 days later, I finally got an alert that it had filed from Bangor to Oscoda. And then I got some weird emails from FlightAware saying that there was a possible issue with my account and getting emails, and basically clicked on a button and it said make sure you get the email because your email provider could have blocked the emails. Well, that came through with no problem, so I'm not sure what happened there, but like I said, I was so disappointed that multiple things failed and I missed that first landing. All right, so anyone that follows politics knows that Michigan is a swing state for this election. Because of that, we saw our fair share of political movements and campaigning stuff. We were seeing a VIP movement almost every day in this part of Michigan. So, not to get into politics, because on my channel I do not talk about that kind of stuff. Anytime I'm doing a political plane, it's purely for the aircraft, not the person in it. But Rob, the Detroit spotter, and I decided we were going to go to Willow because within about a half an hour we were going to see Tim Walz's 757, Air Force Two, and the backup to Air Force Two landing for a rally. So we got there and we were filming the new Pacific in the campaign livery coming in when it abruptly went around and a police officer came up to us. And he basically kicked us out and told us that what we were doing was not very smart, which, I mean, obviously, there's always a risk with plane spotting during a political movement. He explained to us that there was 2 snipers pointed at us, which, I mean, for those of you that don't know how these type of things work, there are always snipers watching everything. That's their job. Obviously, we knew they were there. Both Rob and I have worked political movements before. It's not really anything to be afraid of. They're obviously highly trained, and really they're just watching to see what you're doing. They're not just looking at you like they're going to shoot you. So obviously this is something we knew. The officer kind of came up and said what we were doing wasn't very smart, which, I mean, yes, he's right, but at the same time, we weren't on airport property. We were standing in an abandoned road off Ecorse Road. I think anyone that spots at Willow knows exactly what we're talking about. We were out in the open with our cameras. Obviously, we knew that we were being watched, and we knew that they could clearly see that we were just taking pictures, so we weren't really worried. But the police officer kicked us out, and he told us that we were the reason for that go-around, which was pretty funny to us, because it was completely false. So even though we weren't doing anything illegal, I mean, we were in a public spot just plane spotting, which again is not illegal. We didn't want to argue with the cop because obviously a lot has happened this year in the political realm, and we kind of didn't want to deal with it. But the fact that he used the "we were a security threat and that's why the plane went around" as a scare tactic was pretty funny and very untrue. So there was a TFR that was going into effect at 6:30, and Walls tried to land at 6:20, which was obviously before the TFR went into effect. So because it wasn't in effect yet, there was a lot of general aviation traffic, and the flight school was still out doing touch and goes. We actually heard on the radio Tower told him to slow down, and then ultimately told him to go around because there was a diamond on short final about a mile in front of him. So that's the real reason for the go around. Secondly, if we were a security threat, when he did go around, he flew a runway heading, which we were pretty much shortly off the approach path. So if we were a security threat, they would have instantly turned him away from us instead of flying him right over us. Another big thing, when the cop approached us, he did not have his lights on. He was just kind of meandering at his own pace. If it was truly an emergency, they would have been on us a lot quicker than that. And also, at no point did we ever get ID'd or anything. If we were actually a security threat, they would have done a little more questioning than, "Hey, you're not in a good spot, you need to leave." They probably would have gotten all our information, maybe even detained us. But yeah, like I said, pretty sure that was just a scare tactic to get us out of there. And yeah. So on the note of actually being able to photograph or video something, on the 29th, we saw the last flight of November 682 Romeo Whiskey, which was the MD-81 that the Red Wings and Tigers used on behalf of Olympia Aviation as a team transport. So this was one of the last MD-81s. I think it was actually the second to last that was still flying. And this was replaced by Olympia by a 737 earlier this year. So this aircraft is not actually trackable on FlightAware or anything, but thankfully we got some insider information as far as when it was going to be departing Detroit to go to Willow Run, because the aircraft was purchased by USA Jet. Now, unfortunately, they won't be flying it. They just bought this for the engines and other parts to support their current fleet of MD-88 freighters. But thankfully, we did kind of know when this was going to take off, so we went to Willow Run and got its last flight. While we were waiting for it, we were also informed that there was going to be a water cannon salute because the pilot flying it there was retiring. So originally we thought this was a USA Jet guy, but it turns out it was actually one of the Olympia pilots. So it was really cool to see that last flight of that specific aircraft, but also one of the last MD-81s. And that was kind of framed in by a nice water cannon salute at the end of it. And now thankfully that flight took place in the morning because I did have to work that day. And I also had something going on at work that day. And about 2 weeks prior, a pilot reached out to me, and her dad was also a pilot at Delta and was going to be flying his last flight into Detroit that day. So I normally won't commit to doing photography or anything like that for retirement flights, because if I'm at work, I don't really know what I'm going to be doing at that specific time. So I don't ever want to say, "Oh yeah, I'll take a picture," and I'm the only person they talk to, and then I'm in the middle of doing actual work and then miss it. So I normally give their contact information to Rob, the Detroit spotter, and they'll reach out to him and he'll go out and take pictures of their retirement. But thankfully, at the time, I was not actually busy, and I got one of the ops guys to drive me out to the runway that he was going to be landing on. So this was the closest I've ever spotted before. I was literally standing maybe 10 feet from the hold short bar. So that was like a super cool experience. So I got an amazing video of him landing, and then also had some coworkers at the gate to get him pulling in. Now, unfortunately, he did not get a water cannon salute, and we heard a couple different things about this. One was that there was a call for the fire department elsewhere, so they were busy doing that, which obviously an actual emergency is going to take precedence over a water cannon salute. But the other thing we heard was that they don't do water cannon salutes after September, which, if that's the case, that was kind of a really bummer because the day this happened was one of those unusually warm days. And I think it was like 76 degrees out. So it's not like the water was going to freeze or anything like that. So kind of a bummer that he didn't get his water cannon salute. But that video like turned out really cool with everyone that helped out with it. Like my coworkers took video of him pulling into the gate, and then I took the actual landing, and then Rob helped me out and recorded the audio from the ramp and the tower congratulating Captain Rapp on his retirement. So in the future, when I do the water cannon salute videos, I'm going to try really hard to get a way to record that audio because I think it's like really cool to have that overlaid as they're pulling in. So the last cool thing that happened wasn't actually in October, but it was in November 4th, and I ended up redeeming myself a little bit for missing the 300 ERSF. We took a trip up to Oscoda to get a different Coletta 777 landing, and that was November 793 Charlie Kilo. This was a new to Coletta 777-200 freighter, and this was an ex-Emirates plane, but about halfway up there, the plane took off, and I was worried that I was going to miss it again, but it showed us getting there about 10 minutes before its arrival, and they actually lost a little bit of speed, so we got there about 20 minutes before, which worked out really good. Spotting at Oscoda is actually really cool. Unfortunately, it's 3 hours away from me, but there are some really good locations, and Oscoda is one of those airports that still has a really low fence line. So I didn't have to do like some crazy setup with my stand and my ladder to clear the fence. I just stood in the back of my truck and was able to clear it, which worked out really good because the location we were in was right at the touchdown zone. And they ended up doing a go-around, which was for an autopilot cycling test, is what some people at Coletta said, but they were doing some other functional checks too. I didn't notice till afterwards, but the rat was deployed, and then on the first approach, the gear doors were still down, which tells me they were probably doing some sort of alternate gear extension check. After the go-around, they retracted everything, it went back to normal, and on their actual landing, it was a normal approach and landing. But yeah, it was right there landing, and really great shot. So super happy I made my way up there and kind of redeemed myself. So yeah, like I said, October was super busy. All the videos that I've talked about in this video are linked in the description below, so if you want to check any of those out, feel free to down there. So thanks for watching this episode of the Aviation Podcast.